Hi there. My name's John Baglio. I'm a comedian from Boston, and Friday, June 17th, my debut album, Tag Me In, will be available for purchase and streaming and all of that fun stuff. And I'm here today talking with Shawn Carter, comedian I've known for a long time, who owns, runs, performs at the comedy club where this was all recorded, Blue Ridge Comedy Club in Bristol, Tennessee. How you doing, Shawn?
Good. Thanks for inviting me on to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you about the album and the club and everything. But let's get into some backstory with us. So you and I, we've known each other for a while.
Years. A decade at least, right?
I believe we first started to cross paths, I want to say at least 2010, which would be like when I was a year in comedy, when I started playing in the softball league.
Yeah.
I want to say that checks out, but you and I, we've been on countless shows together, and we've done a bunch of like road trips. We drove to Cleveland.
Yeah, and I remember early on just thinking, this guy crushes at softball.
Yeah, and also a comedy. I took people doing the soft. As you will see if you buy and download this album.
They'll find out quick when they download it.
Yeah. It took getting into softball to really kind of entrench myself in the comedy community in Boston, because no one really knew who I was. I was just young and affable. And so being able to like network there without really trying to network, but just people getting to know me, seeing that I was really good. Softball opened some doors that probably wouldn't have opened for me. So definitely was quite the experience.
It's nice to hang out once a week with people that are doing a lot of comedy and run shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, and kind of a relaxed atmosphere, even though a lot of people took it very seriously. People would, there were some fights, people would run over catchers. Definitely wasn't as funny as you would think an all-comedian softball league would be, but...
Didn't somebody throw a bat into the Charles River?
Yeah, and... someone, I think you had moved at this point, but someone else got choked. But that's a story for another day. But
I missed that one.
Yeah. Oh, there was definitely some tension in that league. So I don't know if it'll ever come back, but we'll see what happens.
Who would have thought a group of mostly unathletic egomaniacs would have a hard time with sports?
People who do the stand-up comedy, which is arguably a very selfish thing to do and very self-centered. Who would think that getting a bunch of them together would lead to conflict?
Yeah, who could have seen that coming?
Yeah. Awesome. But yeah, like I said, you and I done a lot of road trips, countless shows together. And it was great to work with you in the club and the entire Bristol community to put this album together. I don't know if I explained the full story to you about everything, or let me rephrase. I think 2020, you and I both had big comedy plans that got derailed from the pandemic. I started in end of 2019, early 2020. I had vision recording a comedy album in the fall in Boston in 2020. And obviously that didn't happen. And then you had plans as well. You were going to travel around the country in an RV with your wife and do every and any show you can do.
Exactly. Yeah. Which did not happen, obviously.
No, neither of those things happened, but it kind of allowed this situation for you and I to work together to put this album together at Blue Ridge Comedy Club. So you wound up pivoting completely. You and your wife opened this club in Bristol, Tennessee, right in the northeast Blue Ridge Mountain corridor. And I got to perform on the very first show there.
That's
or
right.
Maybe not the
you
very first. Maybe not the very first. I think they were like, you did some like...
We had a soft open, but you were there for the grand opening. It was you and Andrew Mayer for the grand
Andrew
opening.
Mayer and I. And I had only been doing comedy for maybe less than 4 months after everything kind of reopened in 2021. So that was July 2021. And I knew within like 3 minutes of my first set at your club that, I want to record my album here. The venue in Boston that I was going to do it at wasn't reopening and didn't really have any plans to reopen. But I knew immediately, like a couple seconds into that set, I was like, oh my God, this place is great. I mean, you have quite a setup there that's the way you explained it was an old TV studio for the local college.
It was they had a certificate program for audio engineering in that building, and also for staging and lighting. So that room was used for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of built for that.
Yeah, no, and it's the perfect setup. I mean, the nice brick walls, laughter bounces around. It's not too big, not too small. It's an incredible environment for stand-up comedy. And that's something that, you've always had a great reputation, even in Boston, of just putting together excellent rooms where sometimes people wouldn't expect to do comedy, or there used to be comedy, but not really. But you've done a great job with kind of being like, oh, I'm going to run this great room. I'm going to cultivate a scene and support talent in any way possible.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, that's the goal. And coming to Tennessee, and specifically Northeast Tennessee, there wasn't really a comedy scene. I mean, Knoxville has somewhat of a scene, but they didn't have a dedicated club. So getting started, even outside of a city the size of Knoxville, and kind of starting our own scene here in Bristol has been interesting and challenging and fun. But to have guys like you and Andrew and other comedians that I've known and those that I've met along the way, it's been really cool to have new comics see more seasoned guys come through.
Yeah. And that was quite an opening weekend too. It did, as great as the shows were, what kind of happened around that didn't go as expected. As Andrew Mayer, who's not here, that sounds like he's dead. He's still with us, but
he survived.
He survived, but we did have to take him to the hospital after the second show that first night of the grand opening. Where he's been dealing with some like kind of vertigo issues and some ear issues. And they kind of flared up while he was on stage during that last show. So you and I kind of like rushed him over there.
Yeah. And then I think you drove him, and then did I drive your car, or did I drive Andrew's car?
I drove Andrew, and then you came over after, and you met up with me in the lobby of the hospital. This was at maybe like 11:15, I want to say.
Yeah.
This is like 11. The second show was at 10. And then we went immediately to the hospital right away. And then we were there until 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
At the ER.
We were there till 7 a.m., I think.
It was quite an experience. You and I, like, it was a while. I mean, it's COVID, so pandemic. So it was a while before Andrew could get like a bed and get seen. But it was just like this kind of like weird bonding experience. That was kind of this surreal situation. And we were just there.
I mean, but do you remember they were like, it wasn't just like COVID that took so long. It was like regular emergency room sort of, the emergency room always takes forever, but then they also like lost his blood.
Yeah. They came, they weirdly they drew blood from him, not the normal way, but they like put it in his hands. Like anytime ever blood has been drawn, it's been like the forearm or like at like the inner elbow area. And they like drew it from his hands, and they
like right in the palm.
They left it right in there too. And then an hour later, the nurse came back and was like, "Did we take blood from you already?" And we were all just like, "Yes, you did." And they were like, "All right, so we lost your blood. We're gonna keep looking for it, but if not, we got to draw blood again." So he's in pain with this. He's already not doing great, and now he has this extra hand pain. And like an hour later, we were like, "We should ask someone." And then we tracked down a nurse, and they were like, "Oh yeah, they found the blood." Which
now just wait another 2 hours.
Yeah, they didn't really they just checked his blood work, and we were there for 6 hours. And then we all proceeded to sleep for the rest of the day. And then
you guys did. I had to get up because I had a baby to take care of.
Yes. And then that's true. There's
But
no
then you
sleep,
got
no
thrown
sleep
into
or
the fire
panic.
because you're saying you had just started doing comedy again like 4 months earlier, and then you went from like featuring like a normal feature set to me being like, John, can you do more time tonight
Yeah,
because Andrew's not going to be there.
you and I wound up co-headlining. I think like each of those shows, I wound up doing like I think I did 45 at least on one of them. So it was
Yeah,
it was good to stretch out and be able to do that much time. I have a lot of material, so that was really kind of a good test of strength to be like, oh no, this is like this material still holds up even a year later, and yeah, it was good kind of getting my feet wet with that big long set, being able to do that. And obviously Andrew's, glad that he's okay, but yeah, kind of made me feel more comfortable with wanting to do a longer set in that room. Because my goal
yeah.
throughout,
It also made me want to have you do a longer set because now that I'd seen you do it, I
yeah,
knew that you could do it.
yeah,
You
and
could crush it.
that was my goal throughout the whole weekend anyways, as I was only featuring, so I wanted to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to mix up the material throughout each show and just kind of make sure that I'm doing like anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes different on each show to kind of like test it all out and see how it's going. So I think I probably wound up doing an hour throughout that entire weekend. There was some fun heckler interactions, but overall it was well
Oh man,
received, and that's
probably still the worst heckler that we've had was opening weekend.
yeah.
That you dealt with them.
I dealt with him, and Bristol is a very small community, so it was fun having people come up to me in the crowd after being like, "Oh, that's Glenn. He's an asshole," and just like people knew, like everyone knew him, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was. It's funny because that night, because it was the opening weekend, we had like the person that manages the whole building in there, and we had the police department had come by because anytime that you're opening for the first time ever and you have like a beer permit, liquor license, and
yeah,
you're gonna be serving people, the police want to come in and see what's going on, and they didn't entirely understand what the comedy club was, who was running it, and then when everybody told them like about this heckler and about how unruly he was and how like you and I were able to handle it without it being, a physical issue at all, they were like, they were like, well, you guys are going to be just fine. This is, we're not worried about fights starting in here if you're able to handle that guy.
yeah.
If you're able to handle Glenn.
That was a great, it was a fun weekend overall. I mean, we made the most of it, with everything going on with Andrew. Like you were able to take me to like that lake there. It was cool. Bristol's a really cool area, and it was fun finding out like the first albums ever were recorded there. I didn't know there was such a big music history. Like I knew about the NASCAR and some of the Tri-City areas, but it was kind of cool to just kind of go somewhere, experience like a small town with a lot of history, because I feel like we have a lot of that here in Massachusetts, but you don't really see that when you kind of go on the road to do comedy. So it was really great atmosphere. You got a good community there, not just comedy, but just like everyone's real friendly, nice, hospitable. So I'm glad it worked out. We were able to do the recording there.
Yeah, I'd say Bristol is a good place to live and a great place to visit. And yeah, South Holston Lake, like you mentioned, is just this beautiful lake that's set in the mountains. It's a flooded valley, which is really fun. And yeah, it's the birthplace of country music. So the first country music that was ever recorded was done.
Yeah, June Carter
Bristol,
recorded music there when she was a child.
That's right.
Johnny Cash's wife. So
that's right.
Yeah, very rich history going back to like the 1920s. So I think I was the first comedy album ever recorded where the first overall albums were recorded. So that feels pretty cool to think about that way.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. They call it the
there's-
sessions around here, where they
Yeah.
recorded all the very first country music records. And I'm hoping that once your record blows up, we can convince more people to come to Bristol, and we'll call it the comedy sessions.
There we go.
Play off that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe the second album that I could do it back there. We'll see. We'll see how the first one does. But I definitely think if anyone's going to record an album or anything like that, Blue Ridge is the place to do it. I mean, the setup's great, the way you do the seating and just that kind of soundproof room really makes it great. There's no wait staff either. I mean, you have like the check-in desk and like a bar, but there's like no one like doing check drops or no one walking around taking orders or anything like that. Not to put down wait staff at comedy clubs, but it was just nice to just not have to worry about any like noise or distractions or things like that getting in the way and just be able to focus on the material and having fun.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we don't do a check drop. I do want to mention we do have wait staff. You can get a drink at our club, you know.
Yeah.
But Cassidy is our bartender, and you know, being a comedian that runs the club and knows that the comedian that's headlining is recording an album. You know, I make sure to tell our bartender to be aware and not be, you know, I don't want any distractions. I want this night to be all about the recording, you know?
Yeah.
It is feeling weird, though, to be an adult and be obsessed with sports as much as I am. Like, it's hard being an adult and diehard sports fan. Like, when you're a kid, it's easy. You look up to these guys. They're larger than life, literally and figuratively. And now that I'm 31, I'm older and taller than most of them. And it's just changed the dynamic. Like, it feels creepy now to be a diehard sports fan. Like, the last football game I went to was a few years ago. I wore a Tom Brady jersey to a Patriots game. I didn't feel like a fan so much as I felt like a giant stalker. Like, what am I saying when I'm doing that? I'm basically showing up and just being like, hey, Tom, I'm here. I'm at your work. I'm wearing your clothes. And I'm going to be looking at you the entire time, just staring at you, watching you breathe. I brought my binoculars so I can see the breath leave your lips, your supple, supple lips. Mwah. This is the closest I can be to you legally.
After that first weekend went so well, Shawn, you know, I reached out to you pretty quickly, and I reached out to Aaron with You Lucky Dog Productions, who's going to be producing the album. I reached out to both of you pretty quickly and put you two in touch with each other, and we figured out that second weekend in November would be the perfect time to do it. I don't know why I had such an affinity to want to do it in the fall. I feel like I have a lot of football and like Halloween material, so I feel like trying to do that in like June or July would kind of just be like, what? No, we don't care about this. So I feel like the fall for the material I wanted to put on the album, I felt like the fall was the most relevant. But you were very accommodating and being like, oh, we can do like the 6th and 7th. And I was able to fly down to DC. Aaron picked me up driving from New Jersey, drove down together, had some good bonding time there. And weekend went great. Didn't have to go back to the hospital this time. You know, we got to see like you, Aaron, and I, we got to see like we went to that distillery, and Corey as well. Corey Knox, who featured Nashville-based comedian.
That's right. Yeah.
We got to, you know, eat some great food, see the sights, walk around. It's a lot colder than I expected it would have been, but you know, that's November for you, wherever you are. Yeah. But it was great. And then, you know, we really got to, I wound up, I sold a bunch of t-shirts. I had a bunch of t-shirts made that said, tag me in on it. I got those made specifically for the weekend, and I had them shipped to you, which I appreciate you doing, because it would have been a pain to try and bring those on a plane or have to like check that and then like have like security be like, what is this? Who is John Baglio? What is going on here?
Sure. Yeah. That was an easy fix for us.
Yeah. So I was able to sell pretty much all of them. I have like 4 left. But I had like, we went to that great bar. I can't remember the name of it, but we got that mango beer, which I can't find anywhere.
It's called The Corner.
Yeah, Mango Cart. Can't find anywhere here in the Northeast. So I missed that a lot, but that was great to try. And we wound up going to that bar after the recordings and just kind of celebrate. And then this couple who was at the show was at the bar, and they were like, we're going to buy a t-shirt, but not if you voted for Joe Biden. And I was like, oh, and then to find out, oh no, they were serious. So then
You were real wishy-washy about that. You sold out your values so quick, Baglio. You were like, I won't say anything to get this $20 for a t-shirt.
Oh, 40. They brought two.
Yeah, okay.
So
I'm not blaming you.
I definitely had to. I found out a lot about myself in that moment because I was like, do I stay true to my guns? Do I, am I a man of integrity or my guy who will do anything for money? And that is apparently who I am. I kind of was just like, I didn't vote, didn't feel like the right time. Mitt Romney he was our governor in Massachusetts for a little bit. He's a good guy. And then this was right at the height of the right when Let's Go Brandon became a thing. And I don't know if it still is, but I feel like that period has passed. But they sent me a Venmo payment for $40, and the memo was "Let's Go Brandon." So I was like, "All right, we are making that private right now. Let's no one's gonna see this."
I did not know that part of it. I just learned that, so that's fun.
Yeah, so they put that right in there. So I was like, I gotta privatize this. No one can know that I did this. But now everyone will know, so it doesn't really matter. But it was even fun to kind of just like, I had done it the previous time I was there, where I kind of like riffed it on stage, just making fun of the Southern expression, the devil's beating his wife. So that was, I'm glad that worked well enough to make the cut for the album. So I'm sure you're used to hearing a bunch of like mannerisms and phrases that you're not really used to. For those who don't know, buy the album, listen to that track, and you'll get exactly what I'm talking about. But is there anything else you've noticed in your time in Tennessee this past 2 years now at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, well, first of all, nice little teaser there. I like that. Buy the album and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's certain things that people say, like, if they're describing something that's very big, they'll be like, oh, it's about that size and half again, which is such a strange way to describe something. And I have heard people say like over yonder, which I thought was just like in cowboy movies.
Yeah, you thought that was in like Gunsmoke or something.
Yeah, but no, people really say like over, I used to have to mow the lawn all the way over yonder. You're like, oh, okay, over yonder. I see. Yeah. But things like that, God willing and the creek don't rise. That's a good one for like, if everything goes according to plan, God willing and the creek don't rise. Yeah. And then just like, it's very common for people to end a text message, an email, or even like a trip to a grocery store by just saying like, have a blessed day. It's just very religious around here.
Yeah. You turned any of that into material at all, or curtailed your verbiage at all to
I don't think I've changed my speech at all, but
I think I remember you talked about Scott Otto coming to visit you, and you were like, oh, I'll pick you up at the airport, and he was like, oh no, I'll take an Uber, and that got a huge laugh out of the crowd there, because that town's too small for Ubers or Lyft or anything like that.
Yeah, there's some people that are starting to do it now, but this town is it's starting to catch up because there's so many transplants that have moved to Bristol, Tennessee since COVID, because remote work has become way, way bigger. Yeah. But up until about 2 years ago, Bristol was like a few years behind on pretty much everything like computer related or apps or, smartphones, anything like that. So like Uber was not really around 2 years ago, but now they're around much more. Yeah. But the as far as language goes, probably the thing that I'm working on a little bit of a bit about is that people will tell you like, he's a good Christian man or she's a good Christian woman, when it's not necessary for the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, somebody told me that their tree worker was a good Christian man, and I'm like, I don't know how that makes him a better arborist, but I appreciate you letting me know.
Hey, he's got the Holy Spirit on his side. That's what makes him
that's
better than a heathen.
That right. God's gonna make sure that tree falls the right way. So
absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have next in store for the club? I see that you guys just got a pretty big grant.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks. Yeah, we got a grant for $15,000, and it's
Ooh.
not just like a check for whatever we want. We need to spend it on certain things that we had said we would spend it on. So basically, we have to spend it on that and then send an invoice. And a lot of that is like comedy classes. Like we said that we're going to expand our comedy class curriculum, which is great for me because, like I said, I love creating a scene and watching comics develop. So that's a lot of what we're going to spend that money on
Yeah.
is like running classes for people.
Yeah, you've uh, always been like a comedy godfather to a lot of people, just in Boston and now Tennessee. So it's great that you're continuing to do that, and then the government's like, oh yeah, no, we want you to do that. So it's nice to have that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I just figure if I'm godfather enough to enough people, somebody will take me on tour at some point.
Yeah,
Somebody will blow up and be like, "Hey, let's take Shawn."
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see how the album does, and then I can get you on the road with me, do another one
yeah,
of our
dude.
famous road trips,
Let's go on tour.
driving through the night again.
No Hooters
Those
this time.
no Hooters. If we stopped at Hooters. There was no other food in like Virginia or North Carolina after we drove 13 straight hours through the night. I want to say
Right.
to get to like Charlotte or Raleigh, wherever we were going.
Yeah, it was
And
like 12 or 13 hours. Yeah.
and I was just like too sleep deprived to put up with the flirty waitress at Hooters. I was the most miserable man there. She was like, "Oh, you've never had a crawfish before? Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Go away, please.
Yeah,
Just bring me wings."
this waitress is trying to flirt with Baglio, and you were single at the time, and I had
I
a
was.
girlfriend. And of course, the waitress is like, two guys come into Hooters. One of them definitely wants me to flirt with them.
Yeah.
And Baglio is like rude to the wait staff. He's like, leave me alone. So now this Hooters girl is basically sitting on my lap, and I'm like, I have a girlfriend. They're like,
Yeah,
why
you
are
had-
you here?
You had bragged when we were driving back. You had bragged and you were just like, "Man, I haven't had sex in 6 days," and I was like, "Oh, fuck you, man!
That's
You
not a
piece of
brag.
shit."
That was not a brag. That was a complaint at the time. Baglio,
Yeah, I don't understand the difference. When you're single and lonely, those your complaints are my dreams and wishes. So, way to rub it in my face.
Well, listen. If married with a toddler, Shawn could go back and slap just dating Shawn. He'd do it right now. So
If I could go back and slap dating Shawn or whatever you want to call that, Shawn, from that trip, I will slap the you who forgot to pack clothes for the trip. You had known we had planned to go to Carolina for like at least a couple months. We'd planned on driving together, and then you were
Yeah.
like, we were on the road, and you're like, I didn't pack any clothes at all. So we just we went to like Target and Walmart
that's
in
right.
like North
I remember
Carolina.
that.
I had to lie to my family because I knew they would not be comfortable with me going halfway down the East Coast. So I lied and said I was going to New York.
Yeah, you
so
were
they
an
wouldn't
adult
know.
that lied and said you went to New York instead of Raleigh. Like your parents would worry less about you in New York City than in Raleigh, North
It's the
Carolina.
distance,
Makes
man.
no
You don't know.
sense.
You don't know my
It
family.
makes
It's the
no sense.
distance.
I think I tagged you in a Facebook post or something, and you were like, "What have you done?"
Yeah,
I was
no,
like,
you would. My sister immediately called me and she was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm in New Jersey right now." And you're like, "Really? Because I bet you're in Raleigh, North Carolina." And I was like, "Oh, God damn it!" I was
Yeah,
just like,
but you
"Don't
were
tell
an
my
adult.
parents."
You didn't
I
need
was,
to.
you don't know my family at the time. When I moved to
Sure.
New York, it was like devastating, worrisome for everyone in my family. So even just like being far from home, it's a lot for them. Even if I'm like an hour away when I went to school in Worcester for college, that was a lot for them. And I
gotcha.
mean, granted, I gave them plenty of reasons to worry about me. So that's not what we're here to discuss. But anywho, yeah, so maybe we'll someday, you and I will do another road trip like that. When you have some time, you and I can do something again. We'll come back down to Bristol at some point, building up that new hour now. So it'll be fun to,
Nice.
focus on newer stuff that I'm working on. Really trying to do, Gary Goldman did 365 writing tips, like one a day. So I've been really trying to do that to focus on building up the material. And we're going to be doing an album release show / party, Democracy Brewing, Friday, the June 17th, same day the album comes out. And I plan on doing none of the material on the album to close out that show.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. So we got some heavy hitters on there. We got like Emily Raskowski, Laura Severus, Rowan Padier. Paul Cyphers is going to be in town from Austin. So it'll be all the four of them, and we'll just get as many people as we can out. Show them, hey, this is how good I am. None of this material is on this album that's out. That's great. Go by, tag me in.
When I was 9 years old, I accidentally walked in on my parents having sex. Did that happen to you guys? Did that happen to anyone? Anybody here? Anybody? A few of you? You walked in on my parents having sex? Okay. I knew some of you looked familiar. All right. I was only 9 at the time, so I didn't know what was going on. So instead of telling me the truth, my parents just decided to lie to me instead. They convinced me they were wrestling each other. But looking back on that now as an adult, I'm just like, why would they think that would make me want to leave? That's like the worst thing they could have said. I was just like, you're wrestling? I love wrestling! Mom, you look like you're losing. Just tag me in, tag me in, tag me in.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great album. That's a great lineup, and Democracy Brewing is a great room for comedy. I did that last time that I was in Boston.
Yeah, Comedy Party, Alex Giampapa, Yuri, they all put on a great show, and they, kind of fulfilled the void that you've left in Boston, where they have a ton of rooms. They do a great job at packing them all out and producing like unique different lineups, and they even just did a show at the Wilbur. They produced that show with Brian Glowacki headlining the Wilbur.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
They're staying busy.
Trying to stay busy, yeah. And so that'll be good. So if you're looking for something to do, Friday, June 17th, 2 things you can do. You can buy my album, then you can come watch me live that night, 8 p.m. And also, one other fun tidbit, June 17th, also listed as 6/17, Boston area code 617.
Nice.
Fun how that worked out. So, album was supposed to be done in Boston. Happy accidents. That's not a fun way to refer to a global pandemic as. But I'm glad that the circumstances changed where able to delay the album a year. We were able to put this together, and happy to have worked with you because you've been, instrumental for me with my development as a comedian. Very much, you've always been in my corner and always someone like excited to work with and hang out with. So I'm glad that you were as involved as you were, Shawn. I appreciate everything you did.
Yeah, thanks for recording with us, man. And we got your picture up on the wall now. You're surrounded by a bunch of other very funny comedians on our little wall of fame in the club.
Yes. Well, happy to be there until you have to make room for someone more famous than I. So we'll see.
Yeah, we got a lot of wall space. You probably got some.
I got a few years before I get demoted.
As long as just sell 1 million copies of this thing and we'll never move you. We're going to blow this thing up. We're going to make it the whole wall. We'll have a mural to you.
That'll just make people think that I'm dead. They're going to be like, oh, who is this? Who is this large child that you are commemorating here? In memoriam of John Baglio.
And at the bottom, instead of writing John Baglio, we'll write, did not vote for Biden. So that you could sell as many t-shirts as possible.
Oh, man. I hope that those people listen, and I want them to know I did vote for Biden. Am I thrilled about it? No. But I would not have gone the other way. Thank you for your money, you idiots. And
You played them bad.
You know, that-
you got them good.
yeah, that $40 was spent trying to think of something that would really bother them that I spent that money on. That $40 I donated right to Planned Parenthood. So
Was spent on gas.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, again, Shawn, thank you very much. Appreciate you talking about the album in the club. June 17th, release date, party, buy the album, come Democracy Brewery. Excited for you to hear the album. You know, if you want to...
I'm excited too. I can't wait to see how it all came out.
Yeah. Well, can't wait for you to listen to it. Can't wait for the rest of the world to listen to it. And hope people like it. I know you will. And I think that's going to do it. Again, thanks for talking to me today, Shawn. Have a good one, buddy.
Thanks.
Tag me in, tag me in, tag me in.